Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wide League Charity Tournament for Toys for Tots. My name is Gerd, joined again with Bounce for this round 5 VGC action. It's already 10:45 on the East Coast, but we're still going strong into this round 5 of number 7 Bounce. We've got some very interesting Pokemon coming up for this round. Why don't you talk about some of it?
Yeah, so we have a Pokemon that not a lot of people are necessarily running during this tournament. We got Lunala as the restricted spot with that Fairy Terra typing, Moongeist Beam, Dazzling Gleam, Meteor Beam, and Wide Guard, paired with a couple of the genies with Torn and Landorus. Wellspring Mass, Ogerpon, Incineroar, and Urshifu. But this is going to be the Dark Urshifu, something we also have not seen too much of today. On the other side, 17 Cats is out here running another Shadow Rider Calyrex with the Chi-Yu in the back, Fluttermane as well, with a Rapid Strike, a Whimsicott, and the main Shao that we have not seen as well. So some interesting picks incoming, a little bit of more nuance about about how Pokemon work and what Pokemon does and especially because main Shao is the weirdest support Pokemon of all time, but I love the thing. But
Mian Xiao has been doing really well, both in Regulation H to a degree, and especially in Regulation G, having the ability to beat Incineroar by having that. You have faster fake out, which is really good, especially when Mian Xiao is already a very fast Pokemon. You have inner focus, which means it's also immune to those fake outs, and it can also hit Incineroar for super effective damage on close combat, potentially getting a one-hit KO. Wide Guard, especially as a fast Wide Guard user, means it is doing so much utility in keeping your Pokemon safe from all those spread damages from the Calyrex duos, the Weathered trio with the Groudon Kyogre, and you have a bunch of other spread moves like Sandsear Storm, Bleakwind Storm, from the genies as well.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially the buff, another Hisuian buff towards Pokemon that were already pretty good staples in the competitive meta in the last couple of games anyway, but it looks like they are starting to boot up this game right now. The Lunala gets selected instantly for this game one. I'm interested to see how this goes because we all know that that Shadow Shield does negate the super effective damage for at least a little bit of that damage reduction. But double prankster on the field over here, Photosynthesis getting prompted, so that Fluttermane is going to be the fastest Pokemon on the floor pretty consistently until it switches out.
Yeah, this is not a Korai you typically see. Like we mentioned, Lunala is not one of the most popular restricted Pokemon out there to use on your team. And especially pairing it with a Tailwind user like Tornadus is a very odd choice. But let's see what happens. We're going to see the Icy, and actually, it's going to be avoiding the Tornadus. So it's going to keep it a little healthy. It doesn't really matter because it doesn't have a focus sash, so it could get one hit KO'd anyway. Bleakwind is actually going to be missing on the Fluttermane. It's going to be hitting this Whimsicott, doing significant amount of damage, about 80%, and the Meteor Beam is going to be activated. It does have the Power Herb, going to get that special attack increase, going to be able to try to fire off this Meteor Beam. It's going to go right into this Whimsicott getting the KO.
Yeah, I mean, losing this Whimsicott early is, in my opinion, a little bit of a mistake, especially if now, especially if there's a lot more defensive play being put in here now. Especially if you can make it to the late game and you still have your Tailwind user after this Tailwind runs out, because you have you have 4 turns of it, right? And this Calyrex is extremely dangerous with it up, especially because uh it has the pressure that Fluttermane puts alone, and now has a second one here. But looks like the terrestrialization is being hovered right now for this Lunala right here, and Moongeist Beam also being hovered as well. The Tailwind's going to go up for Tornadus here, but again, it doesn't really look like there's much that can outspeed these two in this Tailwind. Right now in the Tailwind scenario.
Yep. So if you're 17 cats, you have to think, okay, I have wide guard, I could use wide guard, and hopefully the Tornadus can start dealing the damage that you need. The Tornadus is going to be going for the Tailwind, and what is the Lunala going to go for? It did not click wide guard originally. It's going to be getting hit with a taunt from the Fluttermane, so can't be using the wide guard for the remainder of the next 3 turns. And the Calyrex, I actually missed this originally. It does have Substitute, which means it is going to potentially eat one hit, but it looks like the Moongeist Beam is actually going to be going into the Fluttermane, and the substitute gets set up for free this turn, so the Calyrex is going to be stuck behind the sub going into the next turn, while it gets another free switch, and now the Mienshao is going to be switching in.
Yeah, and now that the sound-based moves are not as prominent, Substitute goes back to being a really, really good selection for certain Pokemon, especially if you can get a read like that where you're not getting hit by it. And we see that we see Lunala get retracted into that Pokeball there in Ogerpon coming out. This is most likely going to be some sort of big move, and just like that, Terrestrialization is coming out there, probably going directly on top of that Calyrex, getting the Ghost Terra up, some extra damage on Astro Barrage, trying to pick up, excuse me, another one of these KOs and start the Grim Neigh pushing as much as possible.
Yep, Mienshao and Calyrex is very good core, as we see the Terra Ghost Astral Barrage boosting the damage even higher to higher beyond. And look at the damage output that it's
Wow.
already been able to do. We see the KO onto the Ogre Pawn, and I believe it gets the KO onto the Tornadus too. So guess what? Because of the as one ability, we're getting a +2 stage increase to special attack. And now you have to bring in the Urshifu and the Lunala. But guess what is also a little risky? This is Dark Urshifu, which means it has a very favorable matchup into this Calyrex.
Dark Shifu is always a solid pick to me, and Wicked Blow is it got nerfed, but I still think it's a very, very solid move. And obviously the dark typing is very solid, but you do want to be careful about losing your Lunala here as well, because you have that extra boost from the second KO on that Grim Neigh. You could just fire off an Astral Barrage or a Psyshock and get some damage, because Lunala again is not at that full health, so the Shadow Shield will not be active when getting hit by this Calyrex, who still I believe still has Tailwind up.
I believe so too. Astral Barrage is going to be hitting through everything. It's going to be dealing significant amount of damage. It's a +2. Even on a resist, Lunala
Oof.
and the Urshifu are going to be going down. That is a checkmate situation most of the time onto the Urshifu. If you don't know, Fate is a low base power attack, but if you use Protect, it breaks the Protect, and you can hit the Pokemon that tried to use Protect. So that Urshifu, even if it tried to go for Protect in that situation, was going to be getting hit by the Astral Barrage, break its Focus Sash potential, and just get obliterated by that Astral Barrage.
That is just the juiced up horse that has to happen in this current meta, and that is the danger of Calyrex Shadow, because it's not only is Calyrex Shadow fast, extremely powerful, but its bulk is not great, but it is definitely better than people think it is. So
Mhm.
being able to lose a little bit of that HP by substituting, and then being able to pick up those two early KOs and then just do it again the next turn with a couple of boosts is exactly what that with this Pokemon is all about. And the play style is just trying to figure out that win condition.
Yeah, something I actually forgot to mention is that the Calyrex has Substitute, but it doesn't have Leftovers, so it doesn't really have that way to recover the HP that's being lost to the Substitute. It actually has Life Orb, so not only are you getting that extra damage on Terra Ghost for Astral Barrage, but you're getting that additional supplementary damage output from Life Orb as well. And as we mentioned, as one gives you +1 each time you get a KO with Calyrex itself. So you're also getting the damage on top of that. So you're just stacking damage on damage on damage on damage on damage. So it's just gonna get those KOs that normally resists or essentially become like almost a super effective hit.
It's really rough, especially because both of these teams seem to love having their tailwinds up and being able to just purely outspeed each other. But the Calyrex is just so fast, and especially if you lose your Whimsicott to like and still get it up at least, you could possibly have a Fluttermane coming in and blowing you. Incoming that we go into game 2 over here, 17 Cats leading 1-0. A different little lead in here this time for 17 Cats, throwing the Chiyu out here instead for this round, getting a little bit of that Beads of Ruin. And then on the other side, you got Ogre Pond Wellspring out pretty early here, the water type out and about.
Interesting to note that the Beads of Ruin can both work both ways. The Bleak Wind normally wouldn't be able to get the one-hit KO as we saw in the last game, but because of the Beads of Ruin dropping the Whimsicott special defense, actually might be able to get the KO here if it were to go and connect the Bleak Wind Storm. We do see the Rain Dance actually going to be counteracting the Sunny Day that Whimsicott I just used. Ivy Cudgel now going to be going into this Chiyu, getting that nice, juicy, rain boosted one hit KO. Chiyu not able to play the game whatsoever, and the Whimsicott is now dancing in the rain when it wanted to dance in the sun.
I am a girl with a big stick, says Ogre Pond once again. Chiyu dropping instantly is huge, but very, very. I wouldn't say that's the hardest of reads. It's a fairly solid place to hit that rain dance in there, especially with Chiyu on the floor. But nonetheless, it was the correct thing to do in the situation. It also allowed Ogre Pond to get a little bit of a little bit of even if Chiyu got it off, Ogrepon is still hitting that Ivy Cudgel with full force instead of getting that half damage in the sun.
Mhm. Let's see what happens now. The Terra Ghost boosted terrestrialization is coming through once again with that life orb going to be doing significant amount of damage. We do see another terrestrialization coming onto this floor. It is going to be the Wellspring Ogre Pawn. If you didn't know, because the mask gives you extra different unique stat increases. So now the embody aspect is actually going to be increasing the Ogrepon Wellspring Mass special defense. So it should be able to help you survive the Astral Barrage a little bit better, but we'll have to see if there is a crit involved because that might be able to get rid of it. Encore actually being beat out by the Mental Herb, so it is not going to be stuck using the same move as it just did. Astral Barrage is going to be coming through, significant amount of damage coming through. Well, how much damage is going to do? Tornadoes is going to go
Oof.
down, and we'll have to see the confirmation on if the Ogre Pawn did end up surviving, and it looks like it did.
Yeah, Ogrepon got a little that nice little special defense boost is gonna be the reason, but it's gonna come out and hit this Ivy Cudgel on top of this Calyrex, and that is going to be the one-hit KO. Very well done right there from Micah to just but whoa, did we get another disconnect? Oh no,
Hopefully
we just
not.
got a little bit of lag. But another nicely done Ivy Cudgel into a frail Pokemon and played perfectly, getting that extra special defense to survive the Astro Barrage on that case. And now the restricted slot is in fact down for 17 Cats.
Yeah, when you look at this team that 17 Caps played, it's very hyper offensive focused, but you lost your Chiyu so early, so you're really relying on that Calyrex to do most of your damage output, but it wasn't really properly set up in a position to just keep sweeping against the team that Micah had set up. Because of that embody aspect special defense boost, it was able to survive that one time and then just retaliate for a KO in the rain.
And especially because this rain setup was also extremely good. Not only because, in general, obviously, the faster Pokemon goes first, but regardless of what Whimsicott tried to do in that situation, even if it was an Encore, if he was like you couldn't Encore because it's turn one, you can't really. I don't think it has Helping Hand. Sunny Day helps with the damage, but in that situation, your Rain Dance always overwrites it because you're a little bit slower. And
Mhm.
obviously weather being, if your weather is slower, you are in a better position. But just like that, you see the Dazzling Gleam take a bunch of damage off of the Min Shao and taking a nice little chunk out of Whimsicott as well, while Micah goes with the switch off of the Ogerpon to throw in Urshifu Dark right here.
Yeah, you wanna keep the Ogre Pawn off the field after you just use the spiky shield, so you don't get Encore locked. We do see the Urshifu does take the close combat in full effect, but because of the focus sash, it is gonna be surviving this time around, but it's gonna be surviving at 1 HP, so anything is really gonna be able to take it. Moongeist Beam on a free hit onto this Mian Shao is gonna be picking up that KO, and now the lone Whimsicott on 17 Cats' team is the only thing left in this game number 2. So it looks like we're going to be heading into a game number 3.
There is nothing left for this Whimsicott here. Moonblast does not have enough in the locker to take this one, and it looks like there's probably going to be a surrender here from 17 Cats. Very, very dominant game two right here for Micah, and that Ogre Pawn is it is the MVP here.
Yeah, so far we're just going to be playing this out, no concedes, maybe trying to just find some damage rolls, see how everything looks. But yeah, it's definitely over for this one in terms of this game. I'd like to see 17 Cats just find a way to position your Pokemon in a way that you did in game number 1, because you were able to set up essentially a 2 to 4 comeback. You were able to knock out all the Pokemon in one fell swoop and then snowball from there. But if you aren't able to find that one instance where you can set up properly, then it's going to be looking pretty tough, because then you just have to pray you can, but you probably might not be able to. So
I mean, it's always worrying on the field when you. That's the nice thing about Ogre Pawn is that it can fill so many roles for weaknesses because of its dual typing with its separate masks. Especially in this team right now, the water coverage is extremely, extremely good. Um, and you saw it right there because Ivy Cuddle with obviously the higher crit rate, it's got super effective. Ogrepon's got an extremely high attack stat. And then being able to give itself a special defense boost in situations like this where it needs to survive versus a one of these Calirexes, and especially Shadow Rider, it's putting yourself in a really good position, especially if you can just blow up a Chi-Yu that fast. Judy, look away, but
yeah, it's interesting to note, especially in that second game where speed interactions matter. Typically, you always want to be the faster Pokemon in most situations, whether you're in Trick Room and you have to underspeed to then be faster. But when it comes to the Weather Wars, especially in manual, you always want to be the slower one, because then that means that you get your weather up first. We did see the Whimsicott go for that sunny day, but because it was faster than the Tornadus, it actually went first, and then the Tornadus ended up going for the rain, offset the sun, rather, to get up the rain, and then able to hit that Chiyu for exceptional amount of damage.
and as we saw before, Micah leading with that Ogerpon Torn lead. And as we saw in the first game, Fluttermane is back out with the Whimsicott ASAP. Now, this is going to change the direction a lot because now there isn't the Chi-Yu that's slower and weak to this Ogerpon, but Ogerpon still has the potential to do a lot of damage. As well as that, this is also dangerous as well. Incoming the Tailwind right up there, Moonblast coming straight out, and then Tornadus taking a good amount of damage, not falling down yet, but the Woodhammer is going to almost find that KO, barely surviving on very, very low HP, but Bleakwind is going to clean that up. Fluttermane going down very, very quickly. Ogerpon still is at full health right now.
That is quite shocking that the Fluttermane was just able to go down so fast. Normally, you try to be able to get those setups with that Tailwind, but I guess just not the situation. You were not able to get enough damage with the Fluttermane, and now you're in a very similar situation as game number 2. You lost your probably your second best option on damage output. You have your support Whimsicott, which doesn't really offer that much offensive output anyway. And now you're really relying on this Calyrex to do as much damage as possible.
See, you might have to rely on the sunny day here from Whimsicott because that Ivy Cudgel is going to one shot this Calyrex if you let it hit, and especially because you're most likely going to terastallize the into water again to try to survive it if you're going to stay in. However, could be a switch incoming that could offset the entirety of it. Spiky Shield is being selected there and Tailwind as well. It is going to get up as fast as possible, but here comes the terastallization on to the Calyrex again. Up to the ghost once more. This is a life orb. As a reminder, it's going to do an extra little bit of damage here. That's probably going to pick up this KO on Tornadus, but not before dropping a spiky shield and before dropping a tailwind to speed up the rest of the team.
I agree with this. Now you get that tailwind up, which can be used a little bit later on in the smash. Astral Mirage trying to hit that Ogre Pond, but because it protected, it's going to be surviving this turn, at least for now. The Tornadus at the HP that it is at is definitely going to get knocked out. You do have to be careful. You now just gave a free attack and a KO for the Calyrex, getting that as one +1 onto its special attack. So now it's doing even more damage. So even a ogre pawn at +1 because of the embody aspect, if you go for terastallization, it may not actually survive an attack, especially when it's already at 75 HP.
But here's the nice thing, Urshifu Dark is still on the field right now. That Sucker Punch can absolutely do enough damage to one shot that to one hit KO that Calyrex there, but it's going to be the Lunala coming in first and foremost. The tailwind is still up for a couple of more turns in here, and I'm gonna switch straight out of that ogre pawn into the Urshifu themselves, hitting up that wide guard. Does not want to get hit by another Astral Barrage, but you did see Whimsicott do a Moonblast into that slot of into that ogre pawn slot before, and that would mean a sash is getting procted if that Moonblast is still hitting that slot.
Ooh, this is a very scary situation. We do see the protect coming in on that Calyrex. We try to see the wide guard keeping everything safe in terms of if the Astral Barrage was coming through. Moonblast smartly used into the Lunala, breaking the Shadow Shield, so now it does not have the ability to tank that extra damage. Terastallization has not been used on Micah's side of the field yet, so that's something to consider. There's no follow me redirection, so now a Sucker Punch into the Calyrex is definitely one of a safer option. But remember that this Calyrex is substitute. So if you try and go for Sucker Punch and there is another protect, even if it fails, you're not able to get a hit in, but maybe it could just go for a substitute. But it's actually going to be a switch out instead. So trying to keep it alive for now and switching into this Mian Chao.
A nice switch at that. Did not want to get hit by the Sucker Punch or entertain any of that Wicked Blow shenanigans. Moonblast is going to come out again. It's going to proc that Focus Sash onto the side of that Urshifu Dark. And now he is a little bit of a sitting duck here for that fake out pressure, but Meteor Beam is going to come out there for new Lunala and take out this Whimsicott. It's going to blow up this thing directly in his face after the Power Herb is consumed, and down goes the Whimsicott. I think was this the final turn of Tailwind, because if it was, this absolutely is, and that is a huge play there from Micah to delay out this the Tailwind for this Calyrex, because now you have a significantly faster Urshifu with the Tailwind on your side, and two Pokemon who can hit this super effectively, who have the boost to be able to do that.
Yeah, one of the big important features of Tailwind mirror matches is that you always want to offset your Tailwind by 1 or 2 turns or more, so that later on in the match, you can actually be the faster Pokemon. And in this situation, this is where it matters because now all you need to do is go for something like a Wicked Blow into Calyrex. But you got to be careful. This Mienshao does have Feint, which is +2 priority, which actually outpaces Sucker Punch priority bracket of +1. So this is where the mind game starts. Could you go for a Wicked Blow, but you could get hit by Feint? We are actually going to be seeing a switch out into Ogre Pawn. Now the Ogre Pawn potentially going to be taking this Feint or another attack. We do see the Terastallization start to come online. It looks like it's going to be this Lunala going to Terra Fairy.
And the nice thing is here is that the fake out, the only way that this could be called out is if there's a fake out into the Lunala, but it is a completely unsafe thing to do at this point because obviously if you don't terrestrialize, you're not going to hit by it. The feint does come out, it is going to hit that Ogre Pawn, and I believe there is one more turn of this Tailwind here. Moongeist Beam is not going to hit onto that protect there. But actually, sorry, my fault. There is a double Tailwind petering out there. Lunala is still alive here. There is not a boost on this Calyrex, so hitting this for super effective damage would be super, super important. But there is another one of these Moongeist beams incoming. It all depends on how well Lunala can survive this onslaught, because Feint is going to come out and hit again. Not for a ton of damage, but it could have been enough chip to take this out. Then Protect on the Ogre Pawn hits there. Incoming the Astro Barrage. Will this Lunala survive? Because this is the decisive turn of this game, and Lunala barely hangs on. It is able to get off this Moongeist beam and take out Calyrex for 17 cats, and he drops that character.
That was an interesting play. The tailwind was gone on both sides of the field, even after the stagger. Mian Xiao should have gone for close combat to really pick up that final amounts of damage. But I think the reason you wanted to go for Feint instead is maybe you're thinking that the Ogre Pawn was actually slower. That would mean that Feint at +2 priority is actually faster than Ogre Pawn's +2 priority follow me. So that is just a way that you can actually pick up the KO. You're able to get the Feint now for the KO onto the Lunala, but now you have to deal with the Urshifu in the back and the Ogre Pawn currently in the field going for this Ivy Cudgel.
And bonk, big, big stick. And that's gonna proc that focus sash. And I don't see a way back with this, especially even with a 1 HP Urshifu on deck. Sucker Punch is pressure enough. There is basically nothing you can do here. And that is going to be the picking up the game for Micah, going to 5-0. A very, very well played game 3.
Yep, and we forgot to mention this at the beginning of this match, is that this tournament is 7 rounds, and anyone with a record of X and 2 or better is guaranteed to move on to the top cut phase of our bracket. So congrats to Micah for being able to pull out a very solid win here at the Widely Charity Rumble event.
I mean, yeah, that I honestly I do at some point I'm gonna watch this VOD back and go do a calculation to see if that was just a damage roll that ended up being the difference there. But a very like keeping that Fairy Terra up and around just in case, super, super important, and was very, very well done by Micah in that one. And 17 cats unfortunately drops to 4-1, but it was a very, very solid game 3 set.
Yeah, 4-1 is not that bad. You still have 2 more rounds to try to get yourself with that 5-0 or 5-1 record or 5-2 record to make it into day 2, which is still a very good accomplishment. You started 4-0, so you're almost there. Unfortunately, there is no resistance-based cuts. It's pure X2 cuts, so you can't just bank on trying to get like top 32 with like a few 4-3s getting in. No, you pretty much have to play it out. You have to find the win. But I think if you're able to start 4-0, you have a pretty solid way to make it into that top cut with one additional win. It's just that now you got to fight all the heavy hitters.
And those heavy hitters are still sticking around for round 6. We will be right back with some more of the Y League Charity Rumble. Before we go away, hit exclamation point charity. Help it out.